G'day, this is Chris. Welcome back to my shed. This is Flat Tank Journey and I'm working on the gearbox out of my Raleigh. A little 2-speed Sturmey Archer gearbox. Or at least that's what everyone thinks. And so, you know, I'm happy to go with that too. Now, you might want to go back and check the episode where this becomes a saga. That this beast that comes out of the gearbox has got 4, let's call them holes in the back. The piece in the gearbox that's meant to slide into that and select them had 3 lugs on the back. And so I went on the search for one of these with 3 holes in them. Now I have to say let me get this right, the Raleigh and Reliant Vintage Reliant Club in the UK have been absolutely smashing. And Simon, shout out to you. You're a good guy. He's gone way above and beyond. And in fact, I joined the club in the end. It was a bit of a challenge, but I joined the club. And I'll never attend a meeting, I don't think, or anything like that. But heavens, this club goes above and beyond to hook you up and help you out. So I paid my membership. Now, after some searching and some research, Simon sent me the gear with 4 teeth in the back of it, or 4 dogs, I think you might call them, that in theory is exactly the same size, and it looks the same size, and everything looks about right. And Simon's as nervous about this as I am. Don't stress, mate, it'll all be good. And yes, it does select. So now all I need to do is get all this thing back together and make it look like it's meant to be that way. And you live and you learn. This was a rebuilt gearbox. Everything inside was as clean as a whistle. Everything looked mint, but it was never, ever, ever going to work because that was the wrong gear. I can't understand why somebody would do it. I don't think, the guy that sold it to me knew. He was a dealer and had bought the bike in and punted the bike on, and I think I've already explained that. So I can't see why the original guy put this together this way. It was an odd thing to do, but let's see if we can get this together. When you watch me do this, keep in mind, I have no mechanical knowledge. None. I'm an undertaker and an embalmer by trade. So if you see me doing something stupid, just forgive me. I don't know why, but I think this is the first piece to go back on. Simon actually made me some videos. So I have watched the videos. Should have said, this guy in the UK pulled his gearbox apart, made a series of videos, emailed them to me of him putting his own gearbox back together. That's commitment for a club. Now that looks about right, because what do they say? Fill it with bearings and remove one, or something. Don't know whether that's right or not, but I have heard that said. Now, in theory, well, not in theory, but in practice, that goes down in there. And look at that. It went. All this was together when I got it. So, in theory, it all goes back together. In theory. actually think the sprocket goes on there. You're going to see a guy make a lot of mistakes here. No, the sprocket doesn't go on there. Maybe it goes on that way. There it goes. Not how it goes. I was right the first time. Should have trusted myself. So the sprocket's got a shoulder on the back, and on it goes. Right, I'm just gonna tighten that up off camera, and I'm actually gonna gently hold the sprocket in the vise and turn the nut. Right, tightened it up. I wish I could tell you that that happened really easily, but it didn't. Bearings dropped out, I made a mess, I swear, I cursed. I turned the aircon on and sat in front of the aircon and sulked for a little while. But in the end, I've got it back in where I think it belongs. I think the next piece to go back in is this shaft, and it sits in the other side and it meshes up really easily. Now, Simon did tell me there's an actual order that these things need to go together in, and I listened, but I don't really remember. So I'm going to see if I can do this from my memory and see how I go. So, you know, you've got 2 bits of the gearbox in. Keep in mind, no experience. Now, the next row of gears is also the selector fork. The selector fork sits in and tilts, and it's like that, and I'll give you 2 speed. So that all looks good. I know that the 4-prong dog goes over the top of the 4-hole dog, so, you know, that kind of makes sense. And I'm just using a bit of soluble grease as I go. And the 4-prong dog must go onto the... Ooh, that's greasy, oddly enough. Onto the 4-splined piece. Lucky I'm not building a 5-speed or a 6-speed box, isn't it? And it must go downwards because... Actually, it goes the other way, it goes that way. It goes that way, I think. Isn't it funny that I expect to be able to intuitively put a gearbox together like an idiot? And this gear that has the lift plate on it, you know, this bit that goes through the selector, must go on the other side. Let's get a bit of lube on that too. Everything's better with lube. Certainly very messy. Now I'm going to try and slide all that in at once, because the selector fork has to go onto the change mechanism and onto everything else all at the same time. Appear to have several gears left over. And I think I'm doing something wrong. I'm going to set this up in the vise because that's the way Simon did it, and see if I can get a better result. I might even watch one of the videos. Rightio, you live and you learn. Simon did tell me that the 2 things needed to go in at the same time. So I actually have the central piece on the selector forks back in the box. I reckon I'm halfway home. I don't know. Right. Now, there's only 2 gears to go, and this should be simple. There's a big gear with 3 dogs, and there's a small gear with no dogs. Now, in theory, there's only one place for the big gear to go. it has to go over there. Which way does it go? Well, don't remember. Could go that way, or it could go that way. I've got a 50-50 chance. Let's go back to the videos. Right, decisions have been made about which way the gear goes, and it's logic because the piece of the Kickstarter slides inside the gear, so it fits. It makes sense. I can't emphasise enough. So I've thrown a fair bit of lube in it, and I'm just going to dump all that in there. And this is soluble grease, so it's not just grease, so don't stress. Actually, I'm going to half fill it with oil as well, and that was recommended to me by a friend who knows better than me of what to put in old gearboxes. So I'm going to defer to him. Rightio. Let's see if this cover will go back on. Now, the Kickstarter needs to be up, and there's the ratchet, and it can only go in one place. I'm hoping it'll go over. It won't. Just something caught. I actually have the whole thing in upside down. God, I'm an idiot. Good on you, Chris. Good work. So now everything's smothered in lube. And I've got shit everywhere. And now I have to turn the whole thing around. You kind of got to laugh. Or you cry, I don't know. One or the other. That's the way it goes. Oh, it's kind of funny. Or not, I'm not sure. Now it doesn't look right. No, I haven't got it upside down. Now I'm really confused. I have to. Well, when it fits, it fits. So I had the shaft up the right way, but I had the new gear, the 4-prong gear, in upside down. It needs to go over the top, and I didn't see that. So that's a bit of a bugger, but, you know, anyway. You live and you learn. In the meantime, you know, let's have another go. Let's smear some grease in there. And everything appears to be changing all right. And have another go. So my engine builder subscribes to the theory of 50-50. Soluble grease and oil. Now, is that correct? Well, I don't know. Do I believe him? Yeah, he knows more about it than I do. That gear goes over there somewhere. Perfect. And that gear goes over there. And now everything fits better. Might be time to clean my hands and get ready to try and put this outer case back on. It's all going well. Thanks for the video, Simon. I thought I had the shaft in upside down, the bearing shaft, the clutch shaft, but I didn't. It just wasn't hanging through far enough. So I picked this up, it's all greasy. That's how I think it goes. If I'm wrong, well, too bad, tough titties. I'm going to put this back on and see what happens. But I don't feel bad about it. Yeah, that goes on there. And that brass bushing was never meant to go through. Was never meant to. Now it probably needs a gasket. So it does. And when it's straight, it probably goes on really easily. Let me just have another look at all this, where everything's sitting. Let me just free up the Kickstarter, see if that makes any difference. Because I suspect when this is right, it'll be right. Like that. Okay. I can call that good, because that will screw onto there. We should be able to tighten everything down. Oops. Bring you back when I've got this tightened up, and if I've made a mistake, I'll tell you. Oh, gearbox is back together. It selects 2 gears and it's got a neutral. It feels really tight. I don't know how tight it should be. And the Kickstarter does work. So, you know, it's okay, I think. I'm going to pour some oil into it and I'm going to leave it alone for a while because I've had enough for one day, and I'm just going to let it all stew in its juices, so to speak. Lubricate itself. It'll probably leak a bit, but I'm not overly fussed by that. And then I'm going to put it in the bike and see if I can get it to change gears. I'll bring along more for the ride. Now, my intolerable issues with sound continue, and this is not even savable footage sound-wise. What I'm trying to explain to you here is that I squirreled away on my own without the camera on and put the gearbox in, and really there's 2 bolts and the gearbox hangs from above. And then I painfully got the lever back in. Now, it changes 2 gears. There's a gear at the top and a gear at the bottom, and there's a neutral in the middle. Now, it doesn't change super well or smoothly. I suspect the gearbox needs to be spinning to get it to change effectively from low to high. Reality for me is I don't know whether the high is back towards me or pushed away from me, as in the rider's perspective. It's not changing super fluidly, and there is an adjuster on that goes between the lever and the gearbox that needs fettled, and that's what I need to mess around with and get that to work out all right. Overall though, it's a pleasing outcome to have the gearbox back in the bike. The Kickstarter does work, and it will select the 2 gears. Does it select properly? Well, I'm not really sure. It probably needs a gasket, and that may take some of the tightness out of it with just that slight tolerance, releasing the end floats a little bit. I'm not really sure. Overall, a good outcome though. I've just had several more goes at the gear change, and there is a gear at the top of the pull and at the bottom of the pull, and the neutral's in the middle. So I think we're home and hosed. It's a matter of finessing and fettling the gear change to get the adjustment right in this adjuster here, so you get maximum pull up for either low or high, I don't know which one's which, and maximum push down, and then there's a neutral in the middle. Other than that, it's okay. Let's have a look at the other side. I've got the clutch loosely bolted up. Here's the clutch side, and all's well. Now, if you remember, I got the brakes redone and I've put the brake rod back in and the pedal height's good. So that's a winner. I've got the clutch loosely bolted together. I actually need to find the right size socket to get onto that nut in there and tighten that down, and then Then I'm going to cut the clutch rod into 2 pieces and put a bearing in it to let the ends spin so they don't flog the clutch out. And we should be good to put some chains back on and do something about bolting up the magneto and giving the thing a good clean. See if we can get it to turn over or something like that. Progress is being made. Always difficult to get that clip on the chain. The gearbox is in. It changes, not super smoothly, but I think it's okay. Does leak a little bit of oil, but I mean, you know, mid-20s oil dripper, as my brother calls them. It changes. I think it needs to be spinning to change more fluidly, and I hope to be able to get that to happen. All in all, though, I've got 2 gears and a neutral, and that's nearly enough. I'm going to push on and put the chains on and do a few jobs like that. I need to get a socket for the clutch nut. Just can't get anything onto it. I may even need to get a socket and machine it. I assume it's some sort of tube socket, but I think I've got one, but it's at my other workshop. In the meantime, hope you've enjoyed the episode. Hit the like button, send me a comment, subscribe if you would. That'd be great. In the meantime, have a good one. Cheers.